good day to be squared away, guys. So thank you so much for coming to the live stream. You know, we got another great video for us. And just like you guys seen in the thumbnail, we got an expert, right? An expert in money, in the thing that's the hardest to get in this game, right? The reason why, because we're answering your questions. We're going to talk to a lender today about what it really means to go out and seek investments, to seek business, to seek growth. Whether you're a home buyer, investor, anything, you need to know this knowledge. And we're going to answer any questions that anybody puts in the comment section. So feel free to go ahead and add something to the comment section, guys. This guy that we have on is incredible. But first, before I get into that, let me talk to the newcomers if watching this video for the first time. Estate Squared Away. That is an organization that I started that is focused on bringing investors to low economic areas and putting people with government-assisted programs. There's this whole concept and this whole fear of gentrification. And what if we can answer that? What if we could do a new concept? What if we could use and work as a team with the government in being able to better a community, to change lives? And you know what I hope to do? I hope to eventually be able to have videos and show the kind of impact that we're going to do to this town. It's already happening, guys. There's already people that are doing this. But first, hold on for me 1 second. I got to see if my guy is ready. I think I was hearing a bunch of emails. So let's see if he is. So he is getting ready. But let me talk about this guy. Incredible, right? Myself, I'm 25 years old. This guy, 25 years old too. He is the same age as me and has accomplished unbelievable things. First of all, he's a 5-year veteran to the trade. He started when he was like 19 or 20 years old. Incredible, right? And he is the youngest mortgage lender to achieve over 10 million in closings in a single year. It's incredible. This guy now owns his own practice too. Jonathan Wells Group with Leader One. He is amazing, guys, and he is going to be joining us here in a second. Just to talk about, what kind of questions are you guys going to have? What kind of things do you want to see in this process? I know the main questions. I know the main questions we all want to answer is, how do you start? How does somebody even get into investing? How does somebody feel confident about even going for a loan? Because it's a long process. There's a bunch of paperwork, bunch of applications. What do we need ahead of time? And then for those of you that are doing the thing that you're saying, or if you're already investing in real estate, then what does it mean to go to the next level? Hey, you have decided now, I am ready to go and get an investment property. Where do we go from here? I know now I am ready to stop doing commercial and being able to, hey, what's up, Kim? How you doing? Hey, what is the next step? You know what I mean? If you guys have questions, feel free to put it into the live, and we're definitely going to answer it. So we're just waiting on our buddy to join us here. In the meantime, right? I don't know if you guys caught the last one. The last one was focused on motivation. You guys got to go check out all the last ones. I have ones with Ryan Hyder, All Nighter Hyder. He is a tremendous moderator for a bunch of big YouTubers. I had this last video really meant a lot to me because it was a lot about how you can take yourself out of the comfort zone. I definitely recommend checking in on all of the videos. As we progress, as these people move forward, we're going to see change in Gary, Indiana, and not just Gary, Indiana. Eventually, I'd like to go into every low economic community and see what we can do. If you know an area, why not be the leader of that area? You know what I mean? Like, why not change your hometown community? Some people, some people grow up in situations, and that's why they decide to pursue these type of investment areas into low economics. I mean, we can look at our buddy Millennial Mike. He had a rough upbringing, but he decided to be on the other side. He decided, I'm going to take care of people that were in my position. So it's very exciting, guys. It's awesome to see us together pushing forward. I'm going to check in on my guy here. Let's see. He is logging in right now. So we're waiting on him. It's all good, man. Hey, so let me talk real quick about Gary, Indiana, and some, what's kind of going on in the community, right? we're seeing numbers as far as rentals. For those of you that are interested already in the community, we're seeing numbers change consistently. I mean, this year we seen in 46409 area, which is that Kentucky, Delaware, that lower east side of Gary, starting to spike. I mean, never before, probably 3 years ago, that same street on Delaware was selling properties turnkey for 30,000. You know what I mean? 3 years ago, nobody wanted to go over there. It was war. It was war territory. Now you go over there, properties are selling for 130,000. I'm seeing properties go up every single day, new developments in process. If you guys came to the dinner, you guys had an opportunity to get our investor's guide. And that investor's guide, I'm going to be offering to everyone. Make sure you join the Discord. Make sure you join the WhatsApp group. I mean, we're creating a tight-knit community here. But just to give some mention here, that information is going to be pertinent to the updates that are happening in Northwest Indiana and in specifically Gary. One of the big things that are going to be happening is the government buildings are going to be in redevelopment, a lot of them. What does that mean? That means the government can do their job. What does that mean? They can take care of the city better. The position that they were in was horrible, man. I was hearing stories about like the actual courthouse, right? This is the government, right? They're supposed to be the ones that are leading the pack here. I was hearing stories about rain coming in when it was raining outside while they're in the middle of a hearing. I mean, they're in dire need of help. I mean, they're trying the best that they can, and I know that they're developing every day, but they need a community like a State Squared Away to come in and make a change. Hey, well, I want to welcome, guys, Jonathan Wells. Hold on 1 minute. Jonathan Wells, hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
What's going on, guys? Happy to be here.
Hey, so I was giving them a little bit of an update on some things that you've achieved. Tremendous, dude. I mean, you're 25 years old, just like me, and you're killing it. 10 million in a year, man. You were able to be the youngest loan officer to accomplish 10 million in a year. Tell us about yourself. How did you start? What was it like, growing to the point you are now? And then we'll go off into a little bit about investments.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate that. So very simply, humble beginnings, right? So when I grew up, my parents actually, my dad lost his job back in, it was like 2010, I think, right? And so, they had bought their home in 2004. So they ended up like owing more on the house than it was worth at the time. We had to sell it, move with my grandpa, and they had to scrape together some, the rest of their savings, right, to get out from under the house. So grew up on the farm where I learned a lot of work ethic and really like all the hustle, right? It's kind of where that was born. From there, I was going to go to the military. Ended up tearing my ACL, so I had to sit out for a little bit. And inside of sitting out, I ended up getting an opportunity to work for a mortgage company. And at that point, I was like, you know what, this is kind of, what I want to do. Right. So yeah, started from there. I got my license when I started going through licensing, the licensing process when I was 18. And it took me a little bit of time to pass the test, admittedly. So I got my license right before my 19th birthday. And then I crossed that threshold of 10 million in production. The year that I was 21, so it would have been 2020 is when I crossed that. And luckily I've been able to sustain a run of
That's
at least
incredible,
10
dude.
million a year since then, in production. And it's been a fun time. So really enjoy it.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's hear. Give everyone a little bit of advice about growing a business in general too, because a lot of investors, they look at their business and they go and they essentially are buying a house just to create money, and they don't necessarily look at it in a business perspective. There's no growth, there's no ability to reach for the stars. When did you know that you wanted to actually pursue something, like a little bit of motivation? When did you know you were all in, dude?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of knew like when I was taking my licensing classes, right? Like I knew that so to give you a little bit of a frame around that with the mortgage stuff, like if you fail your licensing test, you have to wait 30 days to take it again, right? I think on the real estate side, you can take it the next day, like immediately after, right? And so if you
Yeah.
failed 3 times, you had to wait 6 months. So after I got my license, it was a year-long process because I passed it on my fourth attempt. And that's where I was like, hey, I've already invested essentially a year into like this, right? So there's really not that there's no other options for me because I was still like 19 at the time, right? Uh, but I put so much effort into it. I wanted it that badly that even now, like when I have doubts of like, oh, like, is this sustainable? Am I doing the right things? I still look back and I was like, I put too much effort into all of this already to drop it now, right? So I
Hmm.
think really if you're wanting to open up a business or you want to, create something like that, I think you have to ask yourself like how important is it to you, right? And if it's that important to you where you feel like you've invested so much and you really are passionate about it, if you don't have that, it's probably not going to work out as well as it should be.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, I definitely tell everyone, especially all of the State Squared Away followers, that you shouldn't just try to become something. You shouldn't just try to get one investment. You should try to shoot for the moon. You know what I mean? Um, Real quick, we had K Dubs. This is Kim. She was out at the dinner last week. She asked a really good question. What are three things about Gary that people should know? And I'm gonna just toss in some tidbits here.
Yeah.
Gary, Indiana is a very unique market, right? Because obviously what happened with the steel mills and where it became. But if we're to look at like geographically and the economics and the situation of Gary, one of the big three things I would definitely say would be watch out for humidity. A lot of them didn't have enough vents that were placed in the homes. Points of termination they call them. I would watch out for downspouts. Most of the people don't know how to, I don't want to say most of the people. People that were not educated on how to maintenance a property don't necessarily pay attention to downspouts, and we see that consistently because of how much rain, lake effect snow, different things that we get in this area. So you're going to start to see that be a foundational concern, creating valleys along the house. So that was two. Let me think on the third one, and I'll throw one more at you, Kim. But we're going to keep going along here. So let's talk about investment loans, man.
Mhm.
People want to know what is it that I have. First, let's start ground zero, right? How
Mhm.
do I start in investing? How do I come to a loan officer such as yourself and be able to give you the paperwork you need? Or how do I present myself?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that it depends on the season of life you're in, right? I'm sure we have all different types of investors of all different age ranges, backgrounds, and things like that, right? So if you're truly starting out and you're younger, maybe like under 30, not married, don't have kids, that whole scenario, I would say the easiest thing, the best thing you could possibly do is buy a multi-unit and live in one side, right? We all know that you can buy a multi-unit up to 4 units, well, with an FHA loan for only 3.5% down. But they actually changed the guidelines for Fannie Mae loans. So you can actually get a conventional loan now to up to 4 units with as little as 5% down. So that is a change that happened in November. Not many people know about that. I've had a couple clients that were looking into investment properties. I told them, hey, like wait until November. You can purchase a primary residence and go from there. So that is a
So
really good. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. So about the conventional versus FHA, that has to be a big game changer because I know a lot of these multi units take some damage. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I know.
absolutely.
Yeah. What would you say on that? Like, you think that it makes it easier for people to get multi units now because since November?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can get, it's definitely gonna make it a little bit easier, right? Obviously, property standards are different for FHA versus conventional. FHA is gonna require more, repairs and things of that nature typically, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, definitely is gonna help open that up a little bit more too. I think it also gives better financing options as well. Obviously, conventional options may be a little bit more advantageous to the right buyer as far as getting a better deal on it with interest rate, mortgage insurance, things like that. So that's going to
Hmm.
be better for the consumer as well. But yeah, I mean that's where I would start if you really boots on the ground, like ground zero type, where you've got a little bit of cash set aside and you don't even own your own home yet. This is a really good way for you to be able to purchase a property and start that with very little money down.
Okay. Okay. So let's take it to the next step. I want to move into a multi unit. What do I got to bring? What do I
Yeah.
got to do?
Yeah, great question. So we can actually use the rental income to help qualify you for that property as well, right? So just because a home's listed at five or $600,000 and it's a 4 unit doesn't mean that you can't afford that place if you're making 50 to 70 grand a year, right? It all just depends on how much that that property is bringing in and what it's expected to bring in with rental income, right? So, but very simply, what you would need to do is fill out like a client questionnaire, which is a short loan application. We'll get your information. We'll take a look at where your credit's at. Take a look at what income you have. So maybe a couple pay stubs, maybe a bank statement or two to source where you're bringing the money to closing from, and that's really it. I mean, there's maybe a couple extra things here and there, but it's not as difficult of a process as people make it seem like from prior experience they've had with getting homes.
Yeah, no, oh my gosh, that's awesome, man. I mean, that seems pretty, it seems pretty straightforward, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So so let's say that the a person, let's take it to another aspect, actually, because there's a lot of people that are loving the FHA conventional loans, the standard traditional lending.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about this other concept that we're seeing a lot of, this DSCR. What does that mean, and what's going on with that?
Yeah, DSCR loans, putting me on the spot there. Uh,
Sorry, I hope I didn't throw you off there. Yeah, I mean, just a
no,
little tidbit, you know.
yeah, no, you're totally fine. So with DSCR loans, essentially what that product allows for you to do is, as an investor, you're using the property to qualify for the property, right? You're still typically on most of those, you're still personally guaranteeing that loan. So when you sign off the loan
Mm.
application, it's going to be in your name. The property can still be held in an LLC. That's totally fine. You can do that on conventional loans too. But you're personally guaranteeing that loan, right? And most places are going to require you to do that just because that's how things work typically. However, you are you're not using any income to qualify for that property. We don't need to see, we don't care how much money you make, we don't care about any of that. We really just care about how much money you have saved, what your credit score is, and then also, does the property make enough in rental income to offset the payment that you're taking out, right? So very simply, if the unit is, if your mortgage is like $1,000 a month, you want to make at least $1,000 a month in rental income, closer to like 11.5, so like
Hmm.
1,150 bucks. That's really kind of that sweet spot. Obviously, some lenders will make you go up to like 1,250, so 25% above what the rental income or what the mortgage is. But in most cases, it's anywhere from 1 to 1 to 1.15 times the mortgage payment on the rental income.
I see. Okay, okay. Kim tossed out another question. So she said, "What's your thoughts on PMI? Some people have told me to put down 20% to avoid PMI, while others say it's not a big deal and it can drop off when the value of the home increases."
Yeah, great question. I would say to that, it's some of it's personal preference, right? I find a lot of times with clients that have higher credit scores, obviously it would be owner occupied for sure. And if you have a higher credit score, your PMI is going to be minimal at best, right? Like in most cases, it's 60 to 120 bucks a month, depending on your loan size, right? So if
Mhm.
that is like, let's say it's going to take you an extra year to 2 years to save that 20% versus putting down 5 or 10% today. Well, obviously, I'd probably, if it was me personally, I'd rather put down the 5 or 10% today than wait 2 years to buy a property and have that home go up in value another, 2 to 5%, right? I'm
Yeah.
a big proponent of buying real estate as soon as I'm able to and waiting on it, as opposed to trying to save for the perfect, loan scenario in that case, to put down 20% to again save, 60 to 120 bucks a month.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. I mean, I think that's almost like, and I might be wrong, but that's almost like what Robert Kiyosaki's thing is like. Debt can be good, like rack it up, but as long as it's the good debt. Um,
Right. And the other thing too is like if it's all going to be owner occupied stuff on that, right? So
mhm.
if you're an investor and you're trying to purchase multiple properties, why would you throw 20% into your home when you buy it when you could be leveraging that money outside and getting one or two more other properties, that are actually bringing you more than what you're spending or than what you're spending on the PMI, right? You're spending 120 bucks on
Yeah,
the PMI, but you're making $500 a month from this next rental property that you get, right? That's kind of the
yeah.
logic behind it too.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I got asked a question earlier today, and I'd love to hear what you think, because it's a very simple question, and you'd think it, I don't know, I just couldn't think of the true answer, and I guess it's more of a mortgage question. Um, if you are buying your first or second a rental property, and you're just doing a straight through. It's a single family. I'm, investing into it. I'll get, a little bit of cash flow, a few $100 a month. How do you continue to grow that? How do investors, say they get two of them? How do they go to the next one? Is there any factor in the income that's already coming on those two properties?
Yeah, great question. So, if you're looking, so let's take a step back here with that. The first thing is when you're purchasing rental properties as an investor, you're really going to be using conventional loans up until you own 10 properties that are financed, right? Because that's currently the limit
Hmm.
is 10 financed properties. After the 10th property, you then start looking more at the DSCR options, right?
Hmm.
So as you're building up your portfolio, it really depends on the timeline of when you purchase these homes. So let's say purchase that multifamily, live in one side, rent the other sides out. You have to live there for at least a year. Outside of that, you're good to go. So let's say you decide to live there for 2 years, move out after the second year, and you go buy the next property. Well, at that point, theoretically and like realistically, you should be doing this. You'll have those units that you already rented the other three are going to be claimed on your taxes, right? You're going to be filing your taxes for those rentals that you have. At that point, we would use the actual income that's filed on your taxes. So your gross rents minus any expenses, whatever your profit is, that's what we're going to be using. Now, obviously, in your taxes, you're still going to have expenses like taxes, home insurance, mortgages, anything like that too. So you'll have depreciation as well, which we can add that back in, so you're not actually getting hit for that on your cash flow. Because most of the time, you're not really going to be making any money on your properties on paper because you're going to have all these write-offs, right? And the whole point for most investment real estate is to have have the tenants pay off the mortgages, and then you take out more mortgages and go buy more properties, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's all gonna be fine, like, if you're breaking even, like, that works. As long as the property's not costing you 2 or $300 a month, right? That's where you'd probably start to see some issues with qualification. However, if you let's say you purchase a rental property and you turn around and 2 months later, you go buy another one, right? Well, you haven't filed taxes on that yet. So all we're going to do is take your current lease and multiply it by 0.75. So we get 75% of your gross rental income. And we're going to use that to throw against your mortgage, which would have your taxes, any home insurance, and then obviously the mortgage itself too. So hopefully that answered the question that you asked me.
No, yeah, it did, because I think Jason just followed it up very, in a very good point. He's saying, I don't know if Gary's going to be a place where we would want to, owner occupy. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But that is a very good point. So you're saying, if it's within the same year, or you're building up consistently within each year, right? You're not accounting for the mortgages that you're already getting qualified. Is that what you're saying?
Yes and no. So like your things are more complicated when you have to look at somebody's taxes to qualify them. So, like, let's say I just purchased, a property on Main Street, last month, and I'm going to go buy a property on Elm Street today. Well, Main Street's not on my taxes yet because that wouldn't get filed until next year. So, let's say I'm making $1,000 a month off of Main Street and my mortgage is, $800 a month. Well, I'm going to actually say that, because of the way my lease is set up and the way that mortgage guidelines work, I'm only going to get credit for $750 of that thousand that I'm collecting based on my lease. So since my mortgage is 800 and I'm getting credit for 750, I'm actually losing $50 a month on Main Street when I go to apply for Elm, if that makes sense.
Okay. Oh, okay. So I understand. So you're saying that, like, there is a factor of, like, looking at the current mortgages that you've just closed
Correct.
on.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a factor of reviewing those with the information you have on the current leases. Now, if this was the following year, so I've already owned it for a year and I have the ability to file taxes on it, then they'll look at my taxes, what I've written off, how many days I've had it rented, things like that. They'll go in more depth once you actually have taxes filed on it.
Okay. Okay. So let's say, what do you think would be the ideal way? Of course, owner occupy would be the most ideal way, right? But let's say, what do you think the ideal way for someone to grow their business through traditional lending would be? How would you say, go from step one to step two to step three? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say if you want to do it aggressively, this is what I would do. I would go purchase a multifamily for my first place. Again, you always want to start with a multifamily because it's going to get you the most bang for your buck right off the bat. And also, it's going to be significantly harder for you to go purchase a multifamily as an owner occupied after you already own multiple properties that you have as rentals. Underwriters are going to see that and they're going to know kind of like what you're doing. And
Hmm.
not that it's like illegal or that anything's wrong with it. But obviously some underwriters are a little bit more like, they'll try and like come up with their own scenarios more than other people, right? So I would definitely start with the multifamily first. From there, every single year, because whenever you sign for a mortgage, you're only signing that you're going to live there for a year, right? Every single year, I would move to a new property and I would never sell a property. I would just keep renting them out. So you buy a multifamily first. Let's say it's $500,000 in a neighborhood that maybe is up and coming, or you have more projected rent, like you can increase the rents over time a little bit more, right? Probably would
Hmm.
start there. At that point, maybe you go buy a single family in like a nice blue collar town where most people are making an average of, let's say, household income 70,000 a year, right? So again,
Hmm.
over time that rental in you can increase the rents on that property as well. And I would just do
Hmm.
that, like buying small single family ranches or buy levels or whatever, like right around that 12 to 1500 square feet mark for like the whatever the first time home buyer price is in that market. Right now it's about 300. It used to be about 2 to 250. I would keep like right around that first time home buyer market because that's where everyone's going to always be trying to purchase. That way you can sell it if you need to pretty easily. Um, and you're always kind of getting in there at the ground floor. Live in
Oh,
each
and that
property
makes
for a
sense.
year. Yeah. No,
Oh,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh,
Well, then
no.
that makes sense, 100%. I think majority of the people that are following with the state squared away, they're focused on those low economic communities. So I understand that's going to be a more difficult scenario, because the low economic communities, they're often in positions where people are leaving more than they are growing. So I know that I don't mean to challenge a question there, but like, if you were only focused on somewhere like a low economic community, what are your thoughts? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So to
Like,
be honest, like I don't necessarily deal a whole lot with loan types that would most likely be applicable in those scenarios, right? I think in scenarios like that where you're able to pick up properties for a lot cheaper that potentially need a lot of rehab, there's going to be more of those again rehabilitation loans, right? That's going to be things like private money and stuff like that. I do have a broker outlet with somebody that can do fix and flip loans. So I'm able to price those out for clients and help them get that product to buy a property and renovate it.
mhm.
However, that's not really traditional financing, right? If you
Yeah.
wanna do it super easily, like, the method I was talking about is probably the easiest way to do it. There's I'm for sure I know there's obviously money in doing the fix and flips and the rehabs and, investing in lower income areas, for sure. However, that's, maybe not the easiest way to do it.
No, no, 100%. And fix and flips, of course. Yeah, that's the ideal. I mean, those are ways to force equity in the property and move that money. You can do those refinance cash out refinances and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, but there are people creating product houses in those areas. You know what I mean? Like other investors that are going flipping it and then reselling it, and then you got people like people coming from all over, following the state squared away, hopefully, and
Yeah.
they wanted to pick up these turnkey properties. Um, is there ever anything that somebody could be concerned about when going through a loan of a house that would say be like a product house in a low income area? What are your thoughts as to um, you know let's talk. Actually, what about minimums? I have a very good question about minimums. There
Yeah.
is a consistent difficulty that I find in these income areas where a lot of mortgage companies can't go to a certain like price range, right? And there's a
Yeah.
lot of difficulty in that. Like, can you, for one, what would you recommend if somebody's not able to, be able to get a loan because their house is only 50 grand that they're trying to purchase? What if they're trying to purchase three properties and they're each 50 grand? Like, what avenues can somebody face, or you could help somebody through? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, great question. So, what I would say on that is the reason why there are minimums on most loan types is that most loan types are going to be conforming loans. So, think of like FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, USDA, VA, the whole thing, right? And so on any QM loan, you can't charge directly to the client more than 3% of that loan amount on your actual closing statement, right? So let's say your loan amount is $100,000. I can't charge you more than $3,000 that's being paid by you, right? Now, obviously, for those of you guys who like don't know the mortgage side of things, when you sell an interest rate, like you do make spread on the back end of that loan too. So there's still ways for you to make money off the back end of that loan, but I can't charge the consumer directly, more than 3%, right? So with that, like you have to take into consideration, okay, well, what's the average loan amount that a loan officer might do? Let's say it's $300,000, right? Let's say they typically charge 1 point to the buyer, so it's 3 grand to them. They're making 2 points on the back. It's another six. So the company as a whole is making $9,000 off that loan. Sounds like a lot of money, but once you have all the hands to go in the pot and everything else that needs to be paid out, it might not be that much, right? Um, Same as I'm sure with real estate commissions, right?
Mm.
So when you are looking at loan amounts that are $50,000, well, now that, I used to be making 9 grand per deal. Now, we're making at that point, $1,500, right? And so there are sometimes a processor might be charged, or might be charging a flat fee of $500. Doesn't matter. She does the same work, whether it's a $50,000 deal or a $500,000 deal, right? So she gets paid $500 regardless. That's a third of that now at the $50,000 range. Maybe
Mm.
I have operational fees like underwriting fees, right? That's another $1,000. And so, that takes the rest of it, and there's really nothing left. And there's still more expenses on that deal to even do it and originate that loan. That's where you really see a lot of the issues, is that the lender can't charge enough to the buyer to actually make that deal a viable investment for them to do as a company, right? That's
That's
typically where you do see those issues.
that's really interesting. Actually, that was really cool to see some insight on the mortgage industry there.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, I think what so people can't just like go and buy like five different properties and wrap it into one loan, even though they're 50 grand a piece.
You can. There would be an example of a blanket loan, I believe is what it's called. Personally, I've actually never done those. I don't even know if we have a product that does that, because I don't like. That's one thing that I've heard about. Like I've seen it in the licensing test. As you can imagine, I've taken it multiple times, so I remember a lot of the information there.
Heck,
So I've definitely known about those types of products, but that would definitely be more of like a hard money thing, where you're able to get a loan specifically for three or four different properties. And again, that would be with private money. You're basically paying cash for the place because you're getting the money from some outside investors so they can make whatever rules they want.
yeah. I see what you're saying. Okay. Okay. Hey, and you know what? I gotta give you a shout out there for being, completely honest about the test. Being
Yeah.
perfectly honest myself, it took me 4 tries to pass the real estate license test.
Yeah.
This stuff is not easy, man. This is legit. Like, I don't know if it was for you, but like when I went and took the test, man, it was not a joke. Like they checked you. They were like, lift your sleeves, lift your shirt. Let's see your waistband, or whatever. And
Yep.
they wanted to see if you were cheating. They even took like people's glasses to check. And it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. No,
I know
absolutely.
now it's not so aggressive now. It's so funny because when I went, it was like there was like legit camera looking at me the entire time I'm taking the test. So yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
no, it was wild, man, for sure.
yeah, but to segue it back, right? So um what would what would somebody want to do if they want to consistently learn about the market trends? Let's talk about that. What if somebody wants to learn, where are we going with the market? How does a mortgage officer know?
Yeah, great question. So, eh, if you're a consumer, right? I mean, I don't think there's really any one source. Like, I would be pulling from multiple different sources, right?
Mm,
Because even if you follow somebody that, that is very consistent a lot of the time, they're still going to be wrong every once in a while, right? And so what I like
mm.
to do is go from like, Wall Street Journal to Inman to MBS Highway is probably one of the best ones that I work with,
Yes,
that I read up on, to like my own company that I work for has they have like an internal guy that gives out market data as well. And really like subscribe to at least 5 to 10 different news sources and look at all of those to kind of gather your own picture based on what you're reading from all these different places, right? So I always say don't just take one person's word for it. Read around a little bit and kind of get a consensus of what is out there, right? Personally,
Mhm.
though, as a loan officer, I love MBS Highway. If you guys are, it's really like a loan officer thing. You're more than welcome to subscribe to it if you want to as a consumer. But it is a little pricey and it's got like a bunch of loan officer tools on there and stuff. But they give you information for like specifically mortgage rates and how those are trending and what economic data that's coming out soon that they think will actually impact mortgage rates, like the job reports that are coming out, inflation reports that are coming out, Fed meetings that are coming up. Like those are all things that they talk about and they give you a picture of how that's going to impact mortgage rates today and also over the next 6 to 12 months.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, do you only do residential or do you do any commercial at all?
Great question. I really just do residential. There are some commercial outlets that we have, but my whole job is just to connect you with the person that does that. So,
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because I didn't know if I could ask you any questions. I got a group of the guys that are with Millennial Mike, and he's a YouTuber that came out from Seattle, Washington. He's part of the growing group of Estate Squared Away. Um, how would you have any advice or any type of knowledge on maybe a 5 unit residential? I know that's going into commercial, but I don't know if that might be something that you know about.
yeah, the most that I know about like commercial loans is that typically they're all like, 5-year balloon payments, right? So they'll have to get like refinanced, within 5 years of taking out the loan. That's really where my knowledge ends, to be honest with you, on the
Oh yeah.
commercial side.
No, it's
Um,
all good. Hey, I appreciate I just want to pick your brain on these different things, while we got you on here. And I appreciate you for being honest, dude. I really do.
yeah.
Um, So let's see. Let's see. And chat, do you guys have any questions that you guys want to ask him? This is a great opportunity to meet with a local person that is thriving, you know what I mean? And hear some background on how the mortgage industry is and being able to get your loans. You definitely want to befriend and make a deep relationship with these people that are working with finances every single day. So, but just overviewing, right? I know that the best way is to be an owner occupied situation. I know that they're offering those 5% conventionals. What about the difference between? I understand that if you're a new investor, you have to pay like 20% down, but if you're not a new investor, you can pay less down, like 10%. Is that a thing, or is that only like hard money or DSCR or something like that?
That might be hard money because I know, like, if I'm looking at guidelines for a conventional loan or even a DSCR,
Mhm.
DSCRs might make some exceptions. I don't know if they'll go down to 10%, but I know that, like, sometimes the final guidelines aren't the final guidelines. Like, they will make exceptions in some cases. Because
Mhm.
again, most of those are getting held by a couple of different people, and it's not as regulated as, like a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan is because they're being sold all the time, right? Um,
Mm.
so
Well,
aside
what's
from
up
that,
with
though,
that?
like
Like,
conventional loans, I mean, you're going to be required to put down 20% on every single property. It doesn't matter how many you have; like they're not going to change that guideline. Like I said, DSCRs might allow you to put down like maybe 15% if you have a ton of loans with them and you're in good standing with them. They might allow you to do that, but that's going to be probably few and far between. They would give that exception.
So, you brought up a really good point, and this happened to me at my own house, and I didn't understand at first, and I was confused. Like, how could I be purchasing a loan with one company, and then all of a sudden, I'm paying to another company, and then on top of it, that it do us as it, does the community of investors have to worry about that when they're getting mortgage loans?
Yeah, great question. So the simple answer is no, you don't have to worry about that. That's normal. That's the standard process, right? The long answer is when you actually purchase a loan, you're not like I work for a company called Leader One, right? Leader One does not secure the loan that we actually put together, right? That's the whole reason why we have underwriting. We don't secure the loan. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, they're the ones that are securing that loan. That's why it's a VA loan. That's why it's an FHA loan, etc. So the whole principle behind that is if you foreclose on your house, we're not responsible. Fannie Mae is because we underwrote your loan to their guidelines, right?
Mm.
So since Fannie Mae is this big entity and they have like billions of loans that are out there, right? They're the gold standard of how mortgages are put together, and they secure all their loans and they pay out any investor that default or that has a loan that defaults through mortgage insurance and things like that. Any entity that wants to hold mortgages and hold mortgage-backed securities, they can go purchase a mortgage and service that loan and make roughly maybe 1% on that deal per year, right? So think of like Mr. Cooper, Chase, any bank that's going to be picking up the loans that, once you close on a house, you get a notice, hey, loans were bought by Mr. Cooper, right? Mr. Cooper, they're in the business of sending out statements, paying your taxes, paying your homeowner's insurance, taking your call when you have a question about, your escrows, calling you when you're behind on your payment. That's the business that they're in, right? And they make, let's say roughly 1% per loan, on each loan per year, and it adds up just based on the volume of mortgages that they hold, right? But at the end of the
Mhm.
day, they know that if you default on your loan, they're not on the hook for it either. Fannie Mae is, right? So that's where like you will see, institutions like that kind of cycle in and out of different loans over time. That's just normal. That's simply passing it around a little bit. Um, and again, it's nothing to worry about because at the end of the day, it's all secured through Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or whoever you got your loan through.
I see. Okay. Okay. Well, that does, we do have a question that came in from Jason. He's
Yeah.
saying, and this is a good question. He's saying, I'm stuck waiting a year to have my rental income for a year. If I make $1,000 a month, I can only get a loan for something with $1,000 mortgage, if I'm understanding that correctly. Does So I guess there's a couple questions, right? Does he have to wait a year? Is that how the process works? Because he's making $1,000 a month, he can only get a mortgage for $1,000 a month.
So yes and no, Jason. If I'm understanding your question correctly here, let me read this really quickly. So rental income of $1,000 a month. So if you were doing a
Oh,
DSCR
rental income.
loan, they would want you to keep your mortgage payment at like whatever. Hey, let me just Google or let me just pull up my calculator real quick because it's not going to be exact math unless I do it this way.
Yeah.
$1,000 divided
I'm
by.
sorry, we're throwing some challenging things at you.
No, you're good. You would want to take out a
Oh,
mortgage of your mortgage would be $800 a month is what you'd be allowed to have for your mortgage on that property. Now, I would imagine they'd probably count other expenses like taxes and insurance on there, which if you're only getting $1,000 a month on the mortgage or on the rental income, your taxes and insurance are probably not that expensive either. So that's perfectly fine. So you'd be able to pull out a loan of, let's say, $80,000 or so. DSCR loans in particular do have higher loan limits, typically around the $1,000 range. So that would be probably the situation that you would be in for a DSCR. Now, for a Fannie Mae or a Freddie Mac loan, if you were to take out like just a regular investment loan on the property, you could have that for whatever payment that you want, right? As long as your personal income qualifies plus the rental income, that's fine. In that case, you would use 75%. So we would use $750 of the 1,000 to qualify. If you had a mortgage that was, let's say, $900, well, now we're going to assume that you're losing, roughly 200 and or yeah, what, $150 a month, um, on that property because your mortgage is 900 and we're assuming you're only collecting 750 after expenses.
I see. I
Hopefully
see.
that made
So
sense.
he's collecting $1,000 a month on his rental income, and I'm assuming that this is from one unit, and then he's going to go buy another unit. I'm not exactly sure if that's what he's inferring, but like you could also use the rental income that you get from that next unit, right? So it's not just the $1,000 of rental income coming in, you know.
Yep.
So there we go. There we go. Hey, you know what that means, Jason? Jason, get more properties. You can do it, man.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you can easily go get more properties. And I'm assuming the way that he posed this question, he probably owns the home free and clear. So
Mm,
if you don't have a mortgage on that, dude, you could pull out easily 80 to 100K. Depending obviously how much the property's worth. 80 to 100K, go put that into one or two more properties.
What about HELOCs, man? This is something that a lot of people that are starting in like investments, they are, looking at their own personal, assets, right? Their own house or, something yeah, their own house, taking out the equity and going and purchasing a property. I understand that there's like a 75% limit or something like that.
Yeah.
75% of it
So
is the most you can pull out.
yeah, so on an investment property, if you're looking at like a qualified mortgage, right? So Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, conventional type stuff, right? You're going to be limited to pulling out 75% of your home's value in total, like in your home mortgage, right? That being said, home equity lines are not first mortgages like conventional loans are, they're second mortgages. So each investor that you look at for a home equity line is going to have different requirements for, in this case, they call it CLTV, right? So like cumulative loan to value. So your first plus your second equals X amount of what your home is worth, right? So at that point, you're going to be, some investors I've seen will go up to 80%, some will go up to, 89.99%. And, some of those are for primary, some of those are for investment properties, whatever it is. I would say the easiest, like if you own a home today and you want to pull money out of it to go buy an investment property, your best bet is most likely going to be to use a home equity line, pull it up to 90% of your home's value, and use that for your down payment after it's seasoned for a couple of months, to go purchase the next property, right?
Mm,
Or the reason why I would recommend doing a home equity line is that if you've owned a home that for long enough to have that much equity in it, you either purchase it when rates were 2% or you refinance it when rates were 2%, right? And I would really, tell you, even as a mortgage lender where my job is to make sure you take out refinance loans, I would still tell you it's very wise for you to not get rid of that 2% rate if you can help it.
Ooh, so I got another good question here. What about foreclosures? Where does that information go? How do people find out about a property foreclosing? And then we'll go on to a few facets about that and like how even like investors can be put in positions of foreclosure. But what goes on about foreclosures? What is a foreclosure? Let's start there.
Yeah, great question. So foreclosure is simply you don't make your payments. Like if you don't make your payments on your car, they're gonna repossess your car. Foreclosure is repossessing your house, right? So you're eventually going to get evicted from the property because you own the property in most states. You actually physically are the owner of that property. However, the mortgage is a lien on the property, so it's a debt on that home. And they have first rights to do anything. Until that loan's paid off, you are obligated to make that payment. And if you don't, then they have legal rights to take your house and sell it to pay off the debt. So very simply, that is what a foreclosure is. Angelo, you actually probably would know more about how to find foreclosures than I would. To be honest, I don't know. I don't know how to do all of that. Actually,
No,
admittedly,
you're
I mostly deal with people when they actually find the house. So
No, 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 no. I totally understand. And I was just curious if maybe you, from your perspective, so the loan off, or I guess the loan company or the mortgage company, they have maybe like their own legal department, and that's how the foreclosures go. I didn't know if you might have had any insight into where that information, gets
Yeah.
spurted off to, or how people, how that process works in the industry of mortgage.
Yeah,
Hmm.
great question. So, I honestly, I don't deal with it a whole lot because my company, once we originate the loan, we sell it off, right?
Hmm.
So, that would be more on the servicing side. But again, yeah, you would have they're gonna send you notices. They're really gonna try and work with you to try and find some kind of a loan modification that will work for you. This might be a common misconception where people think that banks are just out to take people's houses after they missed 2 payments. It is very expensive to sell a home as a foreclosure, and there's no guarantee you'll have it sold quickly at all, right? Because typically, if somebody lets their home go into foreclosure, they're not going to be keeping their home in the best condition either, right? So the banks really don't want to take your house. They will work with you, maybe putting your loan out to a 40-year mortgage, or doing something to kind of find a way to keep you in there and keep you making your payments so that they can eventually get that money back, right?
I
So that's really the banks don't want to go through the foreclosure process.
Okay. Real quick, Jason tossed out another question. He said, "I actually make 2,000 a month in rental income. If I don't count taking out any maintenance and vacancy, um, I would like to. But one more fourplex. Buy one more fourplex, either in Gary or Chicago, wherever I can." Oh, okay. So I guess this is my bad. I'm not under. I don't understand the question.
I think
But
I get it. I think I get it.
oh, okay, okay.
So, so Jason, what you would do is you mentioned that you're okay. The first part of this, all the way up here, is you're stuck waiting a year to have your rental income for a year, right? So, if you had just purchased this property, we're actually going to take the gross rental income you're receiving, which in this case would be 2,000, and then multiply that by 75%, right? So that would be something to the tune of like 1,500 bucks would be what we would use to qualify you against the mortgage. I don't know how much your mortgage payment is. Let's say it's 1,200. Cool, you're cash flowing 300 bucks. Like that's going to go towards your income, right? Once you once you like file your taxes, you have that completed for a year. That's going to be the new like whatever you're showing on taxable income minus with adding depreciation back in. That's going to be what we use for your cash flow, right? And that number could be a negative number. I don't know what that's going to be. Um, but in this case here, like you would be fine. Like you don't have to, we're not going to go off of a net calculation that you have. We're going to go off of gross at 75% of the gross. If you haven't filed taxes yet on that property, if you have, we're going to use that and we're going to add back in, depreciation and any soft costs that don't actually cost you any money out of pocket. From there, yeah, definitely, we should buy more properties for sure. Chicago's probably gonna be your best bet in my opinion as far as the amount of inventory you can find, because in Chicago there are way more multi-units than there are in Indiana. But Indiana's gonna have cheaper taxes and, probably the properties that you find are probably well, I don't even know if that's real. I was gonna say the properties you find might be a little bit more like put together, right? But I mean, there's going to be crappy places like that need rehab wherever you go, right? So yeah,
Yeah. Let me ask you, what about short sales? What is a short sale, and does that mean that we can negotiate with the mortgage companies?
yeah, great question. Also, I think I've done like 2 short sales in my career. So if I remember this correctly, short sales are the bank selling the property short of what they owe on that property, right? So let's say, and this is an experience I had with a client about a year and a half ago, actually almost 2 years ago, I think. That's when we closed on their place. Uh, they they bought a short sale. No, it was about a year ago, I think. I don't know, it was somewhere in no, it was about 2 years ago. They bought a place from the bank. The client that was the guy that was selling it, like in the short sale, previous owner owed 250 on the property. My clients bought it for 230. So the bank was upside down $20,000, right? Um, they were able to negotiate a few things on that, but it wasn't a whole lot. Like, because the bank's already upside down, so they're not going to try and put themselves in a position of being more upside down in that property, right? Um, Obviously, in certain cases, appraisals might be an issue. Getting something in that actually fits the condition of, that if they over leverage the property or the property lost value, it's going to be really difficult to make that deal work. That one almost didn't close because the bank was like holding up a lot of stuff on it, but it is doable. It's a pain in the butt, but it's doable. And in this case, that it was the only like place that buyer could get under contract, and she still loves it. So
I see. I see. So that's interesting. So um, I understand mortgages are liens, right? That's something that's a judgment or something or a lien that's put onto the property to say, hey, you owe money, you have to pay this back. And I understand that there are different types of liens, right? So
Mhm.
you're saying that people have the ability to contact that, like, say if I'm interested as an investor and I'm interested in this mortgage company, or I mean this property, there's a mortgage that's out of my budget, they're also going into foreclosure. So you're saying I can actually contact the mortgage company and negotiate with them on a lower possible price?
Depending, right? Like in this case with short sales, they're typically listed on the MLS as short sales, right?
Hmm.
Um, in the example that I was telling you guys about, that was with a personal client that was buying it as a primary residence. I honestly don't know actually if there's different rules for investors on there. I don't imagine there would be too many different rules for an investor buying a short sale. But I do know it's definitely a pain in the butt for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's definitely not the easiest route to go for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, it sounds just like the tax sales. You know what I mean? What is the tax sale?
Right.
The tax sale is you're buying a lien for a reduced amount, $500 on the commissioner sale. And you're taking over that lien, you're foreclosing, and you're doing the same process that the mortgage companies would do, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
so
Except
yeah,
for in
I
this
mean,
case, you're not like in the short sale process, you're not actually foreclosing, but they've already obviously done that. They've gone through that process, and you're just buying it from the bank, and then they're gonna write off the loss that they have from what you paid versus what they owed.
I see. I see.
Yeah, so you're
Well,
you're
that's
not
great
actually going through
information.
the process at all in foreclosing. But yeah, no, absolutely.
To me, it sounds like worth a try, right? It sounds like worth a
Mhm.
try to see, hey, can I get this at a reduced price? Because if there's short sales out there, if there's tax sales where they're doing negotiations, I mean, I've heard of stuff that was just like this, let's take for example a car, like you owe $3,000 on a car from the dealership, or I'm sorry, you owe $6,000 from on a car from a dealership. Somebody can go to that dealership, sell the purchase the lien and be like, hey, you're going to have to wait and hope that he pays $6,000 on it. I'll give you 3,000 right now. And then they take over the lien and they gain ownership that way. So it sounds pretty similar to how the investment or the mortgage companies can work. Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. Or
So
even like collections too. Like collection agencies do that all the time. They sell debt back and forth for pennies on the dollar.
collection agencies. So mortgages will actually go and work with collection agencies. I thought they just go straight to foreclosure.
No, no, no. I sorry, bad. I said just collection agencies in general, right? Like your description of the of buying like title to a car, is the or buying liens on cars, similar to what collection agencies do, like with medical debt or credit cards or whatever. Like they sell the collection, the debt back and forth to different people. So
I see.
it's totally different
Well,
than mortgaging.
and well, we're heading toward the end of our time. I thank you so much for coming and joining me on this. I know I gave some hard questions. I'm so sorry to throw you
Oh, you're
curveballs, man,
fine.
but I appreciate you hanging in there with me. Thank you.
Absolutely. And
And
one more.
thank you,
Oh, sorry.
everyone.
I was gonna say one
Yeah,
more thing
yeah, it
real
looks
quick.
like we have
Jason,
another.
Jason had one last question. It was at 8:21. I want to make sure I answer this. Are you going all in and going to owner occupying Gary? Jason, everyone has their own personal preferences. If it were me, I mean, I'm young enough that like I don't really care where I live, right? Like if it all made sense, if the numbers worked and the math was mathing, I'd live pretty much anywhere to make a dollar for at least a year. So hopefully that answers your question there.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair point. Yeah. So thank you everyone for watching. Thank you so much, John, for coming on board. And we look forward to meeting you. Hey, talk a little bit about your company and how can people contact you.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. What you guys can do is go on Facebook and search Jonathan Wells. It is JONATHAN. I am meta verified, so it should be easy to find me on there. Shoot me a friend request on Facebook, or you can also find me on Instagram, Jonathan Wells 99. Again, I'm verified on there too. So I do post a lot on socials about different tips and tricks for really any type of home buyer, whether you're an investor or you're looking to buy a primary residence. You can also shoot me an email, Jon Wells WELLS at leader LEADER the number one.com. That's my work email. So you can reach me there as well. Always happy to help you guys out. I'm very much an informational person. I love answering questions. I love working through a complex scenario with a client. So if you guys have any questions or you want to just run some scenarios by me, please hit me up. Let me know.
Awesome. Thank you. And hey, guys, you guys got a resource for mortgage now, man. So give them a call. All right. Thank you, everyone. We're going to end this. So thank you again, John.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.